In Rise of Kingdoms, there are certain commanders who have fallen by the wayside or never really achieved their true potential or the potential we thought they might have when they entered Rise of Kingdoms. In this video, I'm going to talk about those commanders and why you should probably avoid them, so stick around. What's up, everybody? Psych out here with another Rise of Kingdoms video. I'm going to talk about these commanders who never really achieved their potential here. I mean, we're talking about commanders who, as I refer to them as fallen by the wayside. These are commanders who didn't achieve their potential, were sort of left out, sort of never really given an opportunity to reach the heights we thought they could when they entered Rise of Kingdoms. But before I get to that, I want to point to this right over here. Yes, that's right. For the first time ever, this channel has made it to more than 1,000 subscribers. I want to say thank you all so much for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for coming by and just checking out the videos when I post them. You know, I'm not a professional. This isn't what I do for a living, but I do enjoy it, and you all are part of what makes it so enjoyable. So I really appreciate you subscribing and coming by. So thanks so much for that. Now, I want to get into the meat of the video, and for the meat of the video, I'm talking about these commanders, and I've been thinking about this for a while. There's a certain set of commanders who have just sort of really been left out of Rise of Kingdoms, or really skipped over. Their opportunity, their window of opportunity, their window of success was really, really short-lived. And so this list of commanders, I've narrowed it down to 5, and I've really put it down to 2 criteria. So the first criteria is they can't be in the current meta. So this can't be a commander that everybody's currently using. Obviously, these commanders were not left by the wayside. They're being used right now. They're very powerful. They're very effective in meta marches today. So those commanders are all excluded. But the second thing is, I'm not just talking about non-meta commanders here, because that list would be much longer. I'm talking about commanders that never really made it into the meta, or their window in the meta was very, very short. So let me give you an example of a couple of commanders that aren't in the meta today, but had a meta heyday when they were really powerful or really used quite a bit. One of those commanders is probably way down here in my list of commanders, if I can find him. There he is, Edward of Woodstock. So Edward of Woodstock, not a meta commander, an archer commander, not a meta commander, but at one time, Edward of Woodstock was really, really strong. He is still actually very viable in KVK2, KVK3. I think you can still use him in KVK2. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm pretty sure you can use him in KVK3. And so he's still a meta commander in those KVKs and had a heyday as a meta commander in Rise of Kingdoms. So we're not talking about Edward. There's other commanders that would make this list. For example, Takeda, as part of the powerful Attila Takeda cavalry pair that terrorized kingdoms and cities for a long time in Rise of Kingdoms, had a long run, a long stretch of being in his heyday. So this commander would not be included in the list of commanders who, again, really fell by the wayside, were just never really given an opportunity to excel. So when we're talking about those commanders, who are those commanders? Who are the commanders that made my list? And my list ends up being 5 commanders. 3 of those are infantry commanders. 1 of those is an archer commander, and 1 of those is a cavalry commander. And so I'll start with, I guess I'll start with the infantry commanders first. There's no real order to the list, but the first infantry commander I want to put on here is Harold. Look, Harold came into the game and seemed like he was pretty reasonable, and people invested in him. Obviously, I unlocked him. At one point in time, I was actually thinking I was going to eventually expertise Harold. He was on my list of commanders to expertise. But as I moved back from KVK2, KVK3, right, when we redid KVK2 and KVK3, got back to the Season of Conquest, it became clear that Harold was not one of those commanders I really wanted to go for anymore. His use is mostly limited to rallies with Pakal. And it just seemed that one of the problems, and I've talked about this in another video, and I'll try to put a card up at the top for that video, is that there was always this Guan, Leo, Alex tension, and Harold really didn't resolve that. Now, that has been resolved with the emergence of Scipio Prime into the game, but Harold didn't solve that problem. Yeah, you could pair him with Alex, and you could get a lot of instant to proc damage, but the March just really wasn't an ideal pair together, and Herald really just didn't have much of a place in Rise of Kingdoms, in part because shortly after he came into the game, the archer garrisons came into the game and really sort of shut down any kind of Herald rallies. And in the open field, this fourth skill, I feel like really just, I don't think it's the fourth skill. Which one is it here? Which one is it? The Timberson Chant? No, it's not that one. Maybe it is. Which skill is it? One of these skills where he actually takes more damage. Is it his first skill, maybe? Oh, yeah. Gain increased damage. I don't remember which skill it is. Okay, when attacking cities and strong. Okay, so it's not that skill. There it is right there. When they use their active skill, they lose 5% defense. And so this is a real problem for Herald. He just becomes, over time on the field, very, very squishy and gets beat up pretty easily. And he's just really not a meta commander. And his window was very short. And that's what's really key, is that he had a short period of time where it seemed like he was useful and effective. But then, they've come out with these new next level commanders, Nevsky, Boudica, and Boudica Prime, that is, and Scipio Prime, and they just really outclass commanders like Herald, who was much more in the class of the commanders that he was around, right? So he was around Guan. He's not quite at Guan's level, wasn't quite at Alex, but was comparable to those commanders, and just really never got his stake into the game. So that's Herald. That would be one commander on the list. The next commander is Herald's best buddy here, Pakal. I think the same thing with Pakal. When he came into the game, he had a lot of potential for rallies. He still probably is the meta infantry rally, Pakal with Herald, but there aren't a lot of infantry rallies. Infantry rallies aren't seen as very effective. The one thing that's nice about this rally is you really can't swarm it, and so that's the one saving grace, I think, of Pakal plus Herald. If you've invested that, you have an infantry rally. It's really painful to swarm if someone tries to swarm it down, although some of those things are going to be changing with the upcoming changes to Crystal technology, which are going to give extra damage when you are attacking rallies. So it's not clear to me that this rally is going to be so unswarmable in the near future. But in any case, the point is that Pakal, that's really it. You can use him on the open field. I see people do it. It's a really bad decision, in my opinion. I see people use him in Ark of Osiris. I think it's terrible. The problem with Pakal is he's just really greedy, right? He doesn't do anything for anybody else. He makes his march better, and Pakal and Herald, that's all they do. They don't help any of your other marches on the field. They don't really do area of effect unless you get surrounded. The one thing that they do, and there is one thing that I would recommend Pakal Herald for, and that is if you are a really, really low spend player, if you are the kind of player who wants to get your 30 million kills every KVK and don't really care about helping your alliance, don't really care about taking objectives, don't really care about controlling the field, if you just want to get your 30 million kills and get the best trades possible, then Pakal Herald is one of those marches that can help you get those kind of trades. But the reality is that Pakal's window of sort of glory was really, really short, particularly when Artemisia and Amanda Tori really came in and paired with Artemisia to really shut down any kind of infantry rally potential at all. So unfortunately, Pakal, Herald, both have fallen by the wayside and really didn't have much of a window of greatness in Rise of Kingdoms. Finally, the last commander that I'm gonna mention that goes with these infantry pairs is CJ. Now, I will say this about CJ. I'm not even sure his window was very large at all. When CJ first came into the game, I was not excited about him. You can see I unlocked him mostly just so that we could get those universal gold heads that come with the opening of a new legendary commander. But CJ never impressed me. He's single target damage. He has 5 skills that work in the open field, which sounds pretty decent, but none of those skills really boost any of your other marches. They're really all about him. And yes, in 1v1 testing, CJ looks really, really good. The problem is in real KVK or real Ark of Osiris scenarios, 1v1 is not really relevant. And CJ I think he's just a pretty terrible commander to invest in. Again, he's really good if you want to do duels. If you say, hey, I want to fight people in duels, he's good. But that's also true of Genghis Khan, right? You could say, well, Genghis Khan is great in duels as well. But in real scenarios, real KVK scenarios, Ark of Osiris scenarios, just not a very valuable commander. And so again, this is another one of those commanders that I think has really fallen by the wayside. He came in and he quickly surpassed, right? CPO Prime is just such a far better commander than CJ that it just is really, there's really no place for him in the current meta, and he really wasn't in the meta for hardly any time at all. So another commander that's fallen by the wayside there. So now I want to switch over to some archer commanders, or well, there's just only one archer commander on the list, and this is what I feel bad for, and that's Cyrus the Great. When Cyrus came into the game, I was actually pretty excited for him. He's got 5 skills that work in the open field, which is really cool. He's got some march speed. He's got some really kind of cool additional damage over time factors. He's got some, when he takes damage on the map, he does additional skill damage. I think he has got a lot of, he actually boosts your rage. He doesn't help any of the other marches nearby, so in that sense he's a little bit greedy, but he's a very, very cool commander and a very, I think, useful archer commander. The problem is, when he came to the game, there were a lot of archer commanders that were very viable, and it just felt like there was never really any place for him. He really never got this window of greatness. He came in at the same time Nebu did, and of course Nebu is still in the current meta and everybody uses him, and we can compare him to a commander like Ramses as well, and Ramses came into the game for much farther before Cyrus came in, and Ramses really did have a heyday as one of the strongest archer commanders in the game when he was in the meta. He's no longer in the meta, but Cyrus the Great really just didn't have that. He really didn't have this window of opportunity to be one of the meta archer commanders. There were just too many other things going on with other marches that were coming into the game. Obviously, XY came into the game, and several other current meta commanders, like I said, mentioned already, Nebu, that just left Cyrus kind of on the sidelines with really no place to go. And so this is another commander. And now, obviously, with Boudica Prime entering the game, there's just really, I think, in meta marches, I mean, sure, if you're going to run 4 archer marches or more, Cyrus is going to make his way in there, but he just really didn't have a very big window into the meta at all. We could almost make that argument about Gilgamesh, but the problem is Gilgamesh is still, I think, the meta, one of the meta rally commanders to stay, so I won't put Gilgamesh on the list, but he's sort of close. His window has been pretty short, and he's still a meta rally commander. Not much in the open field, I don't feel like, these days in terms of meta open field marches, but because he's still a meta rally commander, I will not put him on the list here. Finally, the last commander on the list is a cavalry commander. And by the way, I don't put commanders like Charlemagne on this list because they were never in the meta, right? They never, like, this is just, there's no point in even talking about commanders like that. But I want to put one more cavalry commander on the list. I don't even think I've had this one unlocked. No, I do not. And that is Chandragupta Maurya. Look, Chandra, like some of these other commanders, had a very short window. There was this brief moment in time when XY and Chandra were the meta cavalry rally, but then Nevsky came into the game and that was it. There was no more Chandra needed. He's really doesn't, I mean, he's got some kind of interesting utilities in terms of, I think he reduces the health of the, there it is, health and the defense of a march that he's attacking, which is kind of cool. It adds some nice utility that way, has some march speed. But, you know, he's single target. Not really one of the meta cav marches these days. And again, his window was pretty short. He never really, I think he's got, this is his rally skill here, but really never made a strong presence in the meta as a cavalry commander, whether in the open field. Now, again, if you were going to run 4 or 5 cavalry marches, you're going to have Chandra in there. But I don't think people should be running that many of a single troop type in today's meta. So Chandragupta Maurya, another one of those commanders who had a very short window of success and was sort of left by the wayside without really ever becoming the meta commander or this powerful commander that we might have thought he made. And so what does all of this mean for you as a viewer? If you're entering the Season of Conquest now, I would actually advise you to avoid these commanders. I wouldn't, look, if you've already got Herald Max, if you've already got Pakal Max, you're probably going to have to use them in some capacity. If you've already got Chandra Max, But if you're entering the Season of Conquest now, I probably would just avoid these commanders. I wouldn't put any sculptures into them. Maybe at some point there'll be a museum buff that makes them really well. Maybe at some point there will be another commander who comes along and sort of reinvigorates these commanders. But I wouldn't be putting much into them at all right now. One example of that is, do I even have this commander? Is Attila. I might not even have Attila. Do I have Attila? Thought maybe I opened him at some point, but maybe not. Oh yeah, there he is. So Attila is one of those commanders who was in the meta for a long time, right? So he's certainly not one of these who was fallen by the wayside kind of commanders, but he's had this reinvigoration lately with Nevsky, and as a particular cavalry rally in particular cavalry situations, you can use Attila Nevsky, which is a lot less swarmable than, say, something like an XY Nevsky would be in rallying. So some of these commanders do come back to life. They get a revival later on. So, you don't necessarily have to give up on them, but these 5 commanders that I mentioned in this video really have been left out, and they never really got an opportunity for great success. That's it for this video. Look, I want to say thanks so much again for 1,000 subscribers. I love you all. I really appreciate you all coming by to check out these videos. I hope this video was helpful. If you think there's a commander I left out or some other commander who ought to be on this list of commanders that are left by the wayside, leave a comment down below. And as always, I appreciate you coming by. Thanks so much, everybody, and I will see you in the next one.